Hi, and welcome to the LB0 Fox India YouTube channel. I'm Morton, LB0 Fox India. And what do you think about a tiny little radio that fits in the palm of your hand? Really nice little mobile radio. Or is it? We'll look at that. This is the Retevis RT98, and just as a disclaimer, Retevis sent me this little radio free of charge for review purposes. All opinions are, however, my own, which means I did not get paid to make this review, but I didn't pay for this little radio either. And a couple of you guys might even have seen the preview of the radio. I'll put a link up here for those of you who watches this on a computer. On phones and TV, that's not possible, unfortunately. That's not my fault, that's YouTube's fault. So I'll be starting off giving you just a little bit of information about the radio. It is a small radio. It's about 10 by 10 by 2 centimeters. So you're able to place it pretty much everywhere. It is a 2 meter only 15 watt FM transceiver. And for what it does, I've been using it for a couple of weeks now, and we'll get back to the positive and negative sides on the radio. But for what it does, it's a great little rig. What you get in the box depends on which package you get. In the base package of the radio, you get the radio itself. You get a little bit of mounting kit with a mounting bracket, a couple of screws, a fuse, and a mic holder, and that's about it. You don't get a programming cable. The package I would recommend you to go for is the, I think it's called the Truck and Tractor Bundle. Just let me check here. It's called the RT89 Farm Tractor Bundle. Don't know why it's called Farm Tractor Bundle, but that's not the important part. With that bundle, you'll get a program cable and a mag mount antenna in addition to that. And that retails at the moment for $81 US, which is not half bad. It's actually pretty cheap for a 2 meter mobile radio. And speaking of the programming cable, this radio does not have a VFO mode. You got to program in every channel that you want to use. And that means that a program cable is a necessity. So with that in mind, I would recommend you to go for the before mentioned Farm Tractor Bundle. But programming the radio is really easy. You get the standard Chinese radio spreadsheet software. Plus you put in transmit frequency, receive frequency, subtones, everything you really need. And the radio is also chirp programmable. But I've tested both, and unless you have a channel setup in chirp already, you can just as well use Retevis' own software. But it's always nice to have one of these little radios that you can program in chirp. If you're used to using chirp, that makes things a lot easier. So programming the radio is easy. Whereas the positive and negative sides on the radio, I'll do the negative sides first. First of all, it is only 15 watts. That might not be too negative though. Depends a lot on your antenna system. I mean, every radio depends a lot more on the antenna than the power being used. So 15 watts is usually enough. I've been using this in my car for my daily commute for 2 weeks now, and it's been flawlessly. I've been able to open all the repeaters in the surrounding areas that I usually do with a 50 watt radio. Secondly, there is no VFO mode, and for some guys that might be a deal breaker. For me, in my car, I do the same commute every day. I got the same repeaters. I program in the simplex channels. For me, it's not a deal breaker, but for some of you guys, it might be a deal breaker. I wouldn't take this radio to somewhere I've never been before, but I can use it for my daily commute. And thirdly, the buttons here are a bit small. That's due to the small size of the radio though. But those are my 3 negative aspects of the radio. When it comes to the positive sides of the radio, it's got a really compact size. You can fit it anywhere in a small car, in a truck, wherever you need to fit a radio, where there's not really any room for it. And most new cars doesn't really have room for a radio. So that's a definite positive for many guys, me included. Secondly, it's really easy to use. There are no deep menus. There isn't really much to fiddle around with, since it doesn't have a VFO mode. You program in the channels you need, you pick up the speaker mic, and you flip the channels with the up and down button here. press the PTT to talk, and that's about it. That's how simple this radio is. Thirdly, it's got a great cost to benefit ratio. If you buy the farm and tractor bundle, it's $81, and you get a lot of radio for $81. The modulation is great. Just look at this clip that LB5JJ sent me from a QSO we had, and you can hear that the audio from the radio, the modulation is good. The speaker is really good as well. It's more than loud enough, which is important when you mount it in a car where you get a lot of traffic noise and other noise in the car. So you're never worried that the speaker doesn't get high enough. So with those aspects in mind, who is this radio for and who is it not for? And I'll start with who this radio is not for. First of all, this is not a radio for a new ham radio operator. It is just too limited. And for a new operator, and that's my second point on who this radio is, and it's almost the same point though. It's not a radio for people who only have one 2-meter radio. It's a supplement. It's not your primary radio, but it might be your backup radio, it might be your vehicle radio, it might be for a second vehicle, whereas the cost and the size makes it good for that. But it's not a radio for people who are only going to have one radio. But who's this radio for then? It's for those of us who have limited space in our vehicles or in our shacks and want something compact. It's a really good radio for that. It is also a radio for people who have a defined use case, such as my use case. I do the same 1-hour commute every day each way, so I got spent about 2 hours a day in my car. I have the same repeaters I communicate on. I have the same simplex frequencies I communicate on. I can do with a set channel list. I actually don't need anything else than a set channel list. So for people who have a really defined use case, this radio is great. And thirdly, it's a radio for people who are looking for a cheaper 2-meter radio that's still got some quality to it, but is not the price of a Japanese rig. So to conclude then, this is a great little rig for those of us who are aware of its limitations. The fact that it doesn't have a VFO mode might be a deal breaker to some. It is not for me, and it might not be for a lot of you guys. But if you really need that VFO mode, that radio is not for you. But then again, it's got great modulation, it is cost effective, it's got a great speaker, it is easy to use, and it's so compact that you're pretty much able to place it anywhere. So would I buy this radio again for my own money? Absolutely. In a heartbeat, I would. But then again, I got this really defined use case. So my advice to you, no matter which radio you go for, read some reviews, watch some reviews on YouTube, and figure out, does this radio match your use case? If the radio matches your use case, and this little radio matches my use case perfectly, so for me, it's an ideal radio. Might not be for you, but define your use case, then start looking for a radio. That's my advice to you. So I hope you like this video review, and I hope you like my other videos as well. So please do like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, 7-3.